Is Ukraine preparing for its assault on Verbove, and is a key piece of U.S. aid arriving just in time? I'm Paul, U.S. Army combat veteran. It's September 22nd, 2023. This is your daily Ukraine update. Let's get right into it. Okay, there hasn't really been an update in the control map. As you guys can see, the only updates are really in and around Robtina, these small updates that we talked about yesterday. You can see here, right, just some minor advances pushing towards Novoprokopivka, but no real significant territory changing hands, just Ukrainian control over some of these Russian entrenched positions. But the real key discussion is what's happening in and around Verbove. And when we go over to the combat map, you can see Ukrainian armed forces remaining very tight-lipped about activities along the front lines. They've usually been very open with their progress, and recently, in the past week or so, they've been much more subdued. And as you can see, Russian forces launching just 26 combat engagements, an even lower point for them. Though there is a separate report of heavy fighting near the Klitschivka railway, which makes sense. Again, Russian forces likely desperate to try to push Ukrainians out of Klitschivka. Probably in an effort to try to blunt continued Ukrainian offensive actions in and around Bakhmut, but also possibly just sort of a political-driven attack, right? Since it looks quite bad for Russia to lose two villages in such quick concession. Now, we're going to take a look at some of the rumors on X, but I did want to, of course, shout out StrikeGum.com. Strike Gum is a product that I have launched after a year's worth of work. I worked with a manufacturer in Denver to find a way to take basically an entire energy drink's worth of caffeine and put it in a single piece of mint gum. Inspired by my time in Afghanistan when I drank a lot of gross energy drinks, Strike Gum is sugar-free, less than 10 calories, and most importantly, every order supports Ukraine. I'm donating 50% of the proceeds or the profits from this first production run to charities that help Ukrainian civilians who've been injured or displaced in the conflict. So if you're interested, you can go to strikegum.com and order yours today. Thanks again to the hundreds of people who have ordered already. Now, going over to X, right, aka the rumor mill, you can see that here is an update from WarMapper as of about 21 hours ago, right, depicting Ukrainian forces as advancing much closer to Verbove, right? You can see here, this is supposedly newly recaptured area, and that they are controlling, again, a small portion, a small chunk, so to speak, but significant in that you can see that it is allowing Ukrainian forces to take up positions outside of the town of Verbove. Specifically, the heights, right? There's some elevation in this area here. Let's see if we can actually try to get that visible here. I believe there's one of these layers that should allow us to see that. You can kind of see it here, right? In the town of Verbove, there's these hilltops. And I think that is probably where Ukraine is trying to occupy, right? These will be great support by fire positions. They'll look down into Verbove itself. And then as they do so from those heights, they can provide fire support and help push out the Bar Squad and Reconnaissance Battalion currently holding on to the village. And if Ukraine can do so, right, as we talked about, it's going to give them access to this area all below, in and around this network of defensive or fortified positions that Russia is operating. So looking elsewhere on X, right, you can see there's a few other reports. Here is I'm not sure. This may not be a Russian aligned map due to the fact that, again, it assesses quite a bit of greater control. But you can see Ukrainian forces here occupying literally these heights just to the south of this western portion of the town, right? So right here, it also has them moving into positions somewhat to the south of that and advancing along this strip here. So just a potentially significant change in control by Ukraine if they can. It implies that they're moving past this second line of trenches into this final line of trenches outside Verbove. And again, I think you're going to probably see them drive the Russians out of this area and then begin to go to work clearing Verbove in order to form this strong point that's going to help them roll to the east and west and really push the Russians out of these trench lines. But the big story is that they are going to be having U.S.-made Abrams tanks to help them out. The first U.S. M1 Abrams is going to be arriving in Ukraine next week, announced President Joe Biden. And the advantage, of course, it's also going to come with a package that includes air defense missiles, HIMARS ammunition, anti-tank weapons, and more artillery rounds. But it does not include additional ATACMS missiles, something that Ukraine has repeatedly wanted. But again, this if the fighting you see is at its heaviest in this range, and the HIMARS is capable of hitting a lot of the targets within occupied Ukraine. ATACMS only really would, at their ranges, would be most effective at hitting targets inside Russia, something that the U.S. has been reluctant to do. I think priorities are starting to shift, and I think containing the conflict is probably somewhat of a greater priority for the U.S. than it has been. When they thought after Kharkiv and Kherson, they thought, oh, we can potentially win this conflict with a big offensive push. But now that that doesn't appear to be in the immediate future, they may be saying, okay, how do we contain this conflict? But that doesn't mean that those 155 rounds don't include cluster munitions. And in total, the Ukraine can expect to receive about 31 Abrams tanks. Of course, with the armor-piercing depleted uranium rounds. So bad news for Russian forces and certainly Russian armor operating in the region. It will be quite a bit of work to get mechanics and tankers trained up on the Abrams. So again, delivery to rolling onto the battlefield is still several weeks or potentially months away. Nonetheless, it is there's at least some reasons for optimism. Anyway, guys, that is all I had for you. Thank you so much to all of the Colonel tier members of CombatVetNews.com, as well as all of our Lieutenant tier members. I really couldn't do this without you guys. I appreciate each and every one of you so much, and all the members of Combat Vet News, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.